Hello and welcome to the second part of our vocabulary review for the STAAR test. Either in tutoring or after school, you've picked up a copy of all of the terms. As with the previous one, I just went through the standards and plugged in every proper noun that shows up because these are the ones that could possibly be tested. I know it's overwhelming, but what's important is that, one, it's a vocab game. You know what these things mean. But more importantly, for both the U.S. History test for STAAR and the AP test, you can connect these things to bigger ideas. And if you understand the theme, then you understand the history. So what I'm going to go over are basically how to do a basic connection and then to go over some of the words that you may not know as much. So for the 20s, for example, if you were able to say that because of the hardships of World War I, American people desired a return to normalcy. So they decide to elect a series of Republicans, starting with Harding, who promise a return to normalcy and a return to the laissez-faire politics and getting away from all that progressive stuff. There also tends to be a very isolationist feel to things, which leads to the first Red Scare and a uptake in things like this rural versus city debate, which culminates in the Scopes trial, in which Clarence Darrow represents those saying that evolution should be able to be taught in school, and then William James Bryan saying that it shouldn't, etc., etc. If you can do things like this, then you understand the content, you understand how it fits into a bigger picture, and you're good. All right, as for the terms that we may not have gone over as well, Frances Willard, remember, she is someone who is an activist for temperance, for prohibition, is also a suffragette. She's the one that we saw the pictures of being characterized as cutting the bar in half, sort of characterized as being kind of militant. 21st Amendment goes along with that 18th Amendment. It's the repeal of prohibition. So this is when they get rid of the prohibition. Marcus Garvey is someone that you may have forgotten about. We spent a lot of time on Booker T. Washington and W. Du Bois. But remember, Marcus Garvey was that third choice that was for Pan-Africanism, that started the Back to Africa movement, that talked about basically that people in Africa, people in America both need to unite in order to create this new society. In the 20s, we also see this resurgence of American art, music, literature. We see this in the Harlem Renaissance, but we also see it in the modernist writers. Many of them have actually expatriated to Europe, and they are writing there. But writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald, who writes The Great Gatsby, Ernest Hemingway, are really characteristic of this American modernist movement, even though they're not here. But Gatsby is considered one of the great essential American novels and really encapsulates that 1920s flair. We then move into the Great Depression, where we have depression, obviously, and then we have people that are documenting it. So John Steinbeck writes The Grapes of Wrath, which documents the migrant experience of the people leaving Oklahoma, trying to find jobs elsewhere. Dorothea Lange is a photographer of the Depression. She's the one that does the really famous picture of Migrant Mother. When Roosevelt is elected, he brings about a series of reforms for the New Deal. We talked about alphabet soup. He uses his fireside chats to convince the American public that these are the sort of things we need. So he's bringing about big change, so he needs to sit down and explain to the American people, hey, this is why we're doing this. Remember, the New Deal comes in three different shifts. It's relief, recovery, reform. Relief, putting food in people's bellies. Recovery, changing the economy, bringing it back. And then reform, basically fixing the system so this doesn't happen again. Some of the administrations you may have forgotten about, the National Recovery Administration is the Blue Eagle campaign, bringing industry, labor, government together to create codes of fair practices and to set prices, basically nationalization of things. Again, that large theme of the federal government getting more power during the Great Depression is something you really got to latch onto. The court case, poultry case, make sure you know it, showing that basically the power of the president is being checked by the other branches, as seen with the court packing scheme failing, things like this. 22nd Amendment gives us term limits. This is after Roosevelt has been there for 4 terms. People think, hey, maybe we should go ahead and establish that tradition that was only to have 2 terms that was established by George Washington, go ahead and codify that and make that a real thing. So that's the basic vocabulary. Make sure that you could identify these terms and then connect them to broader themes in history and kind of explain how they work. If you cannot, come into tutoring, come talk to me, and I will talk to you again soon.